Welcome back to another Stay Woke podcast. This is DeRa Brinson, and you know the Stay Woke podcast is presented by thesonicbreakdown.com. Thank you again for joining us for another, you know what this one is. It's going to be a special, exclusive Saturday released episode, and it's going to be the Black Panther review. We got a special panel that's going to break down this movie. And let's start. We have Spencer. You heard him on several podcasts before, as well as Miss Alanna Jane. She's been on a lot of our comic book or superhero movies, as well as other podcasts as well. And then we have Benjamin Unanaowo, which was the host of the Wokekanda Report series that we did, the 5-part series that you definitely should check out if you haven't seen the movie. And if you have seen the movie, you should still check it out. As well as, I know a lot of people still haven't been able to watch the movie, so you're still deciding what you're going to wear. Definitely go out to the sonicbreakdown.com and check out the 5 artists or 5 fashion designs that you can wear to the Black Panther premiere, which was also written by Benjamin Unanaowo as well. So let's kick it off.
We are here at the Wokekanda Report. We're live. Just let it be known, there are spoilers. So if you have been following the Wokekanda Report, our 5-part series, this now is the end, but really it is not an end. It is the beginning into Wakanda. I am Benjamin Unanaowo. You can follow me on Instagram at Cousin Benji. And we are here to go ahead and discuss the review of the Black Panther film. So we're here with Spencer, and we are here with Alanna. So, Spencer, Alanna, go ahead and tell me first, what were your expectations for the Black Panther movie?
I got to say, with all the social media hype that was going around and just the discussions that we're having, like from group chats and just one of my friends in person, I had pretty high hopes for it. Generally, I don't do that for most films because I feel like you have a low expectation. That's probably the best way to go in. Mm-hmm. Less chances to be disappointed. But this one exceeded my expectations. It hit on all the cylinders that I really hoped it would. And then some things that I didn't expect, which was, I think, the best part about it. There was, even from the very beginning, I was getting surprised. So it was a well put together film, and I'm planning to see it again.
Oh, most definitely. And we're going to touch on that beginning. So, Alanna, what were your expectations coming into the film?
They were quite high. I've been into, I would say, a solid working majority, probably close to 80 or 90% been into what the MCU has offered me. And then seeing that cast, knowing what Chadwick Boseman was going to bring to the role, even if no one else was going to bring it. But then I saw the cast list and I was like, yeah. And then we're giving it to Ryan Coogler, and I was like, there's no way this isn't going to be great. And it just killed me. It was so good. And it's not for me. I'm a white lady. Let me put that right out there. And it was so good anyway. I'm so glad I saw it. I want to see it again also.
Oh, yeah. It was amazing. I would, piggybacking off of both of you all, the social media hype was just ecstatic. It was just completely just out here. And if you really look at it, too, it's just like a lot of Marvel films, they get production, which the Black Panther got a lot of production, got a lot of hype put out there from its marketing team. But I mean, the fan base was driving from the moment that they knew this film was going to happen. Every time you found out this person's in the movie, that person's in the movie, the memes started rolling through, and it was just became popping. And I will just say this, where it's like, if anybody wants to put it in their number 1 film for Marvel films, I have no problem with you. Second, third, fourth, but all I know is you cannot go ahead and have a top 5 MCU films without putting the Black Panther in there. The Black Panther basically has turned into the Andre 3000, of this era. You can't put a top 5 together and be like, whoa, where Andre at though? So it's the same thing. The Black Panther has to actually go ahead and be in here. So we touched a little bit on the beginning. So just for our listeners to go ahead and know, because we've got some international listeners. We've got some listeners in New York. We got some people down south. We got some people in the Midwest and Kansas. Shout out to the Jayhawks basketball team, because I know you'll probably rock with them because it can be a little boring in Kansas. But y'all go ahead and y'all keep it here locked in on the Stay Woke podcast. This film started out in Oakland, the Bay.
Straight
Too
from
Short was
Oakland.
playing straight from Oakland. And we ain't talking about Gambino's like Telegraph Oakland. We're talking about some old school Too Short was played. What y'all think about that?
1992.
1992 Oakland.
First of all, the first thing I say, I went to the premiere at Grand Lake Theater in Oakland, and it was like they had like a private event. There was like kind of regular seating, and then they had the private thing. So even before the event started, like it was like Davey D, the hip hop historian. He was like the DJ there.
Oh,
like,
that's live.
They had African drumming. They had like dancing performances all before like the show started. And then I promise you, like we blacked out that theater. And when I tell you that when like the opening scene, when they show Oakland 1992, the theater erupted.
Oh, I mean, it was almost hidden. That was one of the best surprises of the film.
Best kept secret.
No one knew that it's like, and I'm a huge comic book fan. I am a working screenwriter. I am trying to go ahead and constantly analyze films and stuff. And there were some things I figured out from just watching the trailer, from going ahead and studying and being a comic book head. I had no idea that they would start the film out in Oakland.
I was hoping there might be a drop of the Bay in there, because you can hear in the trailer that Killmonger is African American, like he's not from Africa like all the other characters. And then I was like, and it's Coogler because he's from Oakland. And I was like, maybe. But then being in the Bay and seeing that reveal, like seeing the font coalesce into the words, it's everything. It was awesome.
Fruitville Station, Ryan Coogler, his first claim to fame as a amazing director
and
writer. And then moving on with Creed, also once again being a writer, being a director, working again with Michael B. Jordan and being so close. And they have just basically been a super team. Like it's basically like Brady and Gronk out here. They win in chimps. They doing their thing. Obviously, though, Brady and Gronk, they ain't win no chip this past year. But a lot of people are happy about that.
Including me.
Yeah.
Go Eagles.
DeRa and me were talking about this earlier today, and Mr. Coogler is a smooth 31 years old. My hat
31.
is off.
Yeah. I mean, he...
with 3 hits.
With 3 hits. Pay that man.
3 films with above a 90% rating on Rotten Tomatoes and pretty much everything else.
They trying to franchise tag him. If you understand sports, you understand football.
They're trying to Le'Veon Bell him.
They're trying to Le'Veon Bell him. They're trying to go ahead and Kirk Cousins him. Not Kurt, but Kirk. They're trying to go ahead and do that to him. Pay that man his money, Hollywood. He deserves it.
We're taking points off the back end. Don't even, right?
Yeah.
Come on.
I mean, USC Annenberg. There's a lot of great filmmakers that have come from the school of USC.
Yeah.
But he was a football player at Sacramento State University, went on to go ahead and go down to USC Annenberg. But one thing, as we see in all 3 of his now hit and signature films at the age of 31, is he's going to incorporate the Bay Area. He is going to incorporate Oakland.
He's gonna
1992.
He's going to go home.
He's going to
go home.
And that leads me to something that I saw an interview that he did on Hot 97, and that's one of the things that he talked about, his approach to directing, that I think is so pivotal to that opening scene of Oakland and how it was shot, the true capturing of Oakland in that. And it's not a long scene. It's not a tremendous scene. But if you are from Oakland, or you've been to Oakland, or you've lived there long enough and you've seen the people, the culture, you automatically know. That's why the people in the audience clapped when they saw it, because it did represent that place to them. But back to what I was saying about his approach is, he said that when he directs and when he's telling these stories, he has to give a part of him in it, because that's you only know the experiences you know, and that's how he can make it real. So I thought that was key in bringing that, and I think that added, which I know we'll definitely get into more later, of how I think it added to a lot of the social commentary that was put into this film.
Yeah, so let's get
as well as the philosophical commentary as well.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. So let's go ahead and get into the film, and let's get into that political commentary. So right in the beginning of the film, we get 1992. We're in Oakland. Got basketball playing going outside with young kids. We get into the apartment scene interior, and it happens to go ahead and be probably the darling of all of Hollywood TV right now, Sterling K. Brown. He's here with a young actor. There are guns in the background. You're kind of invoking some of those feels of the Black Panther Party. You're seeing Oakland, which was the birthplace that was there. we're in Black History Month as we're doing this right now. Just quick tidbit. We have our POTUS, Donald Trump, right now getting ready to go ahead and put out a budget, a tax plan, which many people are speculating that he's getting ready to go ahead and cut funds from basically food stamps, as we know it, SNAP benefits here. And it's ridiculous because, as anybody that knows their history knows, that the early start breakfasts for kids in schools that could not afford it was originally started by the Black Panther Party.
That's right.
So it was not just a party and a group of black men in leather jackets with guns, but there were always still things going on. So Spencer, talk a little bit about the scene and how you felt about it with regards to Sterling K. Brown, and tell us a little bit about what also happened in that scene and how you felt about it.
First of all, I got to say Sterling was almost the best kept secret in the film. That was just another example of like just my surprise early on in the film, because even when they mentioned he was going to be in it, there really wasn't any discussion about what his role was.
Forgot.
Yeah, very easy. He wasn't. You don't see him in the trailer doing anything.
I did forget.
Like he's not prominent in that. But you see these guys. Okay, like you mentioned, there's guns, and there's like, I think there's like
maps. I almost thought it was going to be a situation to where T'Challa was coming in and was going to stop them because they were maybe getting ready to try to kill some cops,
right?
Or there was like drug type of scene involved. Didn't know where it was going to go.
Yeah, it definitely had like a sinister feel to it. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, there's like a knock on the door. The younger gentleman, he looks at Sterling. He's like, what's that? He's like, better go answer it and stuff. Okay, guy opens the door. And this is another just kind of real that just immediately it just put a smile, and everyone was almost pretty much cheering and applauding in the audience. You have two of the warriors of Wakanda, two women.
DeRa Brinson, there at the door.
Right at the door. And for those who aren't familiar, who soon be familiar, these are like the top of the line, the strongest elite warriors that protect Wakanda.
Yeah.
And protect the king.
And protect the king.
Yeah. I mean, if you are a fan of strong female characters that exist within inside of Hollywood, if you are a fan of history, if you are a fan of Wonder Woman, of history with regard to Amazons, we touched upon this in our third episode of the Wokekanda Report, where we talked about the DeRa Brinson basically being taken from the Dahomey women of West Africa, and with them being the black Amazons that went ahead and defended the king. So you get these two women that are there as the DeRa Brinson that are right at the door, and they are asking questions, and they are not to be messed with. So, Alanna, how did you feel about that scene taking off from the DeRa Brinson when you saw that?
I was tense immediately. Like, it just really grabs you right away. And then I like the quick little comment that the younger gentleman says they look is two Grace Jones looking women. And I was so into that. And also I knew that meant that I was about to see two beautiful, very dark skinned black women. And it delivered. Like, it's just I think there's a lot to say about colorism later. We can get into that a little bit more later, but I loved seeing these very dark, very beautiful, very strong, serious women right there. We just don't see them on screen, and they're right there, right away.
And we also talked about that in our fourth episode of the Wokekanda Report. You go ahead and check it out on iTunes and SoundCloud, where we go ahead and talk about how this movie could have possibly existed back in 1998 instead of Blade, and Grace Jones was one of the people that we cast to go ahead and be a member of the DeRa Brinson. So it was very interesting that they went ahead and used Grace Jones. So in this scene, then the DeRa Brinson, they walk in, they start talking to the two gentlemen that happen to go ahead and be there, and the younger one's confused. The older one, he seems cool with it, and then boom, we get some language that's happening, and we realize that he happens to go ahead and be Wakandan, and then the Black Panther go ahead and rolls through. So Spencer, what were you thinking there, and kind of take on what happened with the rest of the scene?
When that scene started, as soon as the DeRa Brinson walked through the door, they basically cased the whole place, looked around, made sure everything was good. They have a move where they just, first of all, they're moving in sync the whole time. They're moving as one. And so they just breathe, and everything about them just exudes discipline and regiment, and like kind of like this silent calm, but like that you would see from a martial arts master.
Oh yeah.
That's immediately what you get from. That's what I was getting from that. So like they both immediately just like they kind of bang their spears, and then lights go off, lights come back on. Black Panther's right there, right in front of you. So you get a nice look now at. And again, this is 1992, so this is not T'Challa. This is father.
T'Chaka.
T'Chaka is there. In his full regalia of Black Panther, just standing in front. And this is the next reveal that comes around, because up until this point, the way you've been hearing these two actors swimming around and the other gentleman, they're just like it's clearly you thinking, okay, it's Oakland. It's not going to be they're going to be speaking in that way.
Yeah.
Accent switch up immediately, so, and one of the things they do too.
He took that knee.
Yeah.
Took that knee like Kaepernick.
Yeah. and the next reveal around that too was how Wakanda identify each other. And it's, so they just basically pull their lips down and it just shows like, basically almost looks like code, that like a biometric code that's ingrained into their skin, that lights up only for people that.
And that was interesting when I saw that, because I don't know if it was just in my mind, if it was from past films that I've seen, history books that I've read. It was almost like a form of like branding where I thought it invoked more so a chattel slavery type of thing, where it's like, okay, you're marking this type of person, but with the way that they did it, revering the level of like pride in doing it, where it was all like, okay, well, I'm like, well, shoot. Let me do some research on it. Maybe it's all like the colonizers went ahead and stole it from Africans to go ahead and like mark, because if you also go ahead and look at Cousin Benji on my Instagram page, we had a post for our lead into this movie go viral, where we discussed in a brief few paragraphs about the history of scarification with Michael B. Jordan's skin, in regards to a lot of the speculation, is the suit going to be inside of his skin or is it not, or whatever it may be. But that was interesting, but it was really cool to go ahead and see them pull down their lips, show, this type of like tattoo of sorts, and that was cool.
No, certainly. And just even going into that scene and just looking, as you already pointed out, just how revered it was, and not even I got to even take it at first as like kind of like a branding thing, because throughout the film it was not any they had been
there's no negative connotation that they associate or that they gave off with it. So.
Yeah, this is how they choose to identify. So that's why I didn't take it as like any negative connotation for that. And that's I thought
also
it was powerful.
part of the secrecy of Wakanda, like. Because it's secret, like that, like that's why it's like that. It's inside, it's internal. You can't see it. It's shown to you.
When people say "hush your mouth," and they're just out here, mouth was closed. They had to literally pull down their top lip for you to see it. So then later at the end of the scene, we basically find out that Sterling K. Brown's character happens to go ahead and be the uncle of the current Black Panther, T'Challa. He is the brother to the King T'Chaka, which, if you follow the comics at all and stuff like that, and we talk about in the very first episode of the Wokekanda Report, is the Black Panther is not a person, it's a mantle for the leader of Wakanda, militaristic wise as well as religious wise and all of those type of things. So as a result of that, you have Sterling K. Brown's character. Basically, he's what's considered one of these war dogs. He is on a mission that's there inside of foreign soil, to where it's basically Wakanda's version of the CIA. And he's fed up. He has found a African-American woman that he has fallen in love with. They have a child. He sees it's 1992. That means we're getting ready for Rodney King. We're a few years away from the O.J. Simpson trial. Watts riots are in the past from the 1980s. So as a result, he is seeing the degradation. He is seeing the struggle. He is seeing the pain that is going on in Black America. And he knows that he comes from a country that has the resources to not only stop this, but allow these people to go ahead and prosper. And he, unfortunately, similar to sometimes the good soldiers that exist within our own military as Americans, is forced to only follow orders. And he is fed up, and he's trying to go ahead and do something different. And T'Chaka is there to go ahead and stop him, as we find out that the other young gentleman that eventually will go ahead and be played by Forrest Whitaker, which awesome job by the casting, because that other gentleman seemed like he had a little bit of lazy eye too.
Right.
He had the Forrest Whitaker eye too. I don't know if they CGI'd it or not, but he had the Forrest Whitaker eye.
And I want to just talk about something as well. When you brought up the casting, I thought the casting of T'Chaka, the young T'Chaka, was great because he had.
I think it was almost CGI though too.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Let me make a point on that.
Yeah, I don't know because he had a lot of.
I actually have that. I
feet.
looked it up. I looked it up. The gentleman playing young T'Chaka, Adwanda Kani, is the son of John Kani, who plays old T'Chaka. They're both actors in South Africa.
Because he looked exactly like him.
It was perfect,
and that's what I was gonna say. He looked like the older father because it's his son, but he also had a lot of features that were similar to Chadwick Boseman that made me feel that they're. That it was very believable that, that is your father.
Which it made you realize how great if it was for them to go ahead and cast Chadwick Boseman to go ahead and play John Connor's son. That's awesome. That means his son is basically like the O'Shea Jackson, the African O'Shea Jackson, because just when the other seminal black movie that we can think of, at least in the last, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, will go ahead and be the Straight Outta Compton. And O'Shea Jackson played his father, Ice Cube, and that was really cool. So it's great to see John Kania, this great African actor, have his son play him in the role. So his son is playing the role of him, T'Chaka. He's there, and he has to go ahead and murder Sterling K. Brown's character, who is the uncle.
His brother. His own blood brother, gets into the ship that is there and then leaves then the young child, Njoku, who will be later known as Killmonger, that is played by Michael B. Jordan.
But we don't know that at that point, though.
But we don't know that at that point. But we know from a fact that it's just like, dang, he killed his own brother. That's rough.
Wakanda forever.
That is the one thing, is that starts and puts into motion within those first 10 pages, which is the first 10 pages, the most important pages within inside of a screenplay, is at the end of the day, not the Black Panther, not the Dora Milaje, not anything is more important than the protection of Wakanda. So now we're moving on into the next scene. So we end with the teaser, and we move into it, and boom. As me happen to go ahead, if you did not peep the name, Unanaowo, Unanaowo, I am an Oron man from Akwa Ibom State, and I am Nigerian. So to go ahead and see Nigeria shown once again in a Black Panther movie, which if you go ahead and pop on Marvel's website, there are 2 languages that are spoken within inside of Wakanda. The first language is Wakandan. The second language is Yoruba, which that is a tribe that exists within inside of Nigeria. So it was awesome to go ahead and see that. What did y'all think about this scene where basically T'Challa came down and he said, with Lupita Nyong'o's character, Nikita, we're going to go ahead and save these girls from Boko Haram. So what did y'all think about that?
That was a great, the thing the film did, I think, the best was thread the needle of having social commentary without coming off as preachy.
Yeah.
And this first scene was a great way to, one, not only show the prowess, technological skill of Black Panther and also introduce Lupita's character, but also show the importance of, even on kind of a small level, despite Wakanda being, like an isolated nation, they were taking the initiative to make sure they were still rescuing other women that were imperiled. And this was also the first example of, or actually the second example now, of how strong Black women were in this film, and who ultimately, in a lot of ways, were arguably the main characters of the film.
Oh, without a doubt. What did you think, Alanna, about that?
I was into it. I like that they turned it a little on its head, because we know he mentions T'Challa mentions that he's trying to find Nikita in the convoy, and I was like, oh, he's trying to get her. Like, maybe he's actually trying to rescue her, is what I thought. I was like, okay, it's Marvel. Like, we're gonna go find Nikita. But then it turns out she was deeply in it, and she cusses him out for like intruding on her mission. Like, she was about to finish it by herself, and he's all in there.
Nikita has She's basically like she is the Wakandan version of the Black Widow. She is her own super type of agent.
Mm-hmm. Her own force, and I like that she's put out by it. Like it was functioning on more than one level, and like we then learned that she's an ex of his.
Yeah, and it's interesting with Nikita being that, because that was another change that happened, which I'm like brilliant, because whenever you're dealing with source material, it takes skill to be able to create a level of adaptation, to be able to go ahead and change it for the screen. So Nikita, in the comic book sense, actually at one point, she's actually a villain known as Malice, which we kind of touch on that a little bit in our episode 3 of the Wakanda Report when we go ahead and talk about the Dora Milaje. However, in this film, they basically merged her with another character from the comics that we have not touched upon, named Monica Lynn, which was an African-American woman that T'Challa ends up falling in love with. So we basically merged the Nikita and Monica Lynn type of storyline, and it's like, that's awesome. Which also at the same time too, if you've seen them walking together in real life and stuff, it's just like, I mean, Lupita Nyong'o is just, I can't describe like just how like,
she's gorgeous.
She's just regal.
Just say gorgeous.
She's gorgeous. She's regal. She
does have an air about her that is
definition
just
of class.
Yeah.
Personified.
I mean, she's sunshine. She's joy.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
That smile. Yeah. But I do want to ask a question about that scene in particular, because playing devil's advocate, looking at it this way, do you think T'Challa as well as Dora Milaje would have rescued them, the women, if Nikita wasn't there, because of scenes that they touched on later that gave the indication that that's not like saving the women was secondary to that mission. Mm-hmm. Getting Nikita to bring back was the main objective, regardless of where she was at. They would have did that. That's what I'm saying. Like it doesn't come off to me necessarily that they would have done that if Nikita wasn't there.
I think for 3 reasons they would have gone ahead and done that. One, Nikita was already there because she is basically like a watchdog of her own. So that was her own mission. She was going to do it regardless.
No, I'm saying, yeah, I agree that she would have did it, but I'm saying,
yeah, she would have.
T'Challa as well as the rest of the Dora Milaje.
T'Challa and Okoye, the head leader played by Danny Aguaria, which many people know her as being a star in The Walking Dead. They were there because they needed to go ahead and get Nikita. Like, it's already Nikita's job as basically being a double agent and a spy within Wakanda that she was already going to make sure that those women were good regardless. So that was going to happen, in my opinion. 1. 2, she's just like awesome, like at what she goes ahead and does, like with being able to go ahead and remove and being able to fight and do all those things. And then 3, it's one of those things where it's like, I think there is a level of connection between Nigeria and Wakanda, because they constantly are there. That's the whole reason why T'Challa's father went to the UN, was to basically apologize for the things that happened with Wokovia and what happened with Nigeria. Moving on into the next part here. So we go ahead and then we are greeted with, we get a chance to go ahead and see the Black Panther on a ship with Okoye, and they are coming into Wakanda. And it's awesome. It's futuristic.
Beautiful.
It's beautiful. You see these high skyscrapers, but then at the same time you see this level of like earth and like trees and everything going up them, and you're like, oh, is this like almost like a gorilla nest, or like, you know, it's like, it's really dope. So what did y'all think about that?
It was the personification and symbol of Black Utopia.
Yeah.
Simple and plain, and they went through great pains to really demonstrate that, because that's a very, I also find that kind of like a great like kind of thread line to walk, because the people who you should be including in the conversation when you're designing something like that are Africans. This is Afro-futurism. Like, that's exactly what the personification, what does the future look like, and not just, okay, if are Black people just going to be there, but in the case of Black people already won, and this is what the future is for everyone. This is how, you know, it's that community aspect.
Yeah.
That was right there. So that came across immediately. And the technological advancements from the get-go, it was just like, that was, you know, it just stood out around everything else.
Yeah.
It was shiny, it was shimmery, and everything was just smooth.
It was the dream of what many African Americans after we watched a movie like Back to the Future and you think of time travel. And I don't know how many times I was in school and you would just be like, to people where it's like, man, if I had a time machine, I'll go back in time and I'll free the slaves. If I had a time machine, I'll go back in time and I'll like make sure that they didn't take none of us from Africa. And it's like, literally, that was like the epitome of like, this is what things would look like if colonization and if racism from a white supremacist standpoint never existed and people could just be.
And that's what it brought up for me is when I saw that scene, it made me sad, but it also made me hopeful. And that's one of the things that I also walked away from the film, that as we'll go through and we'll see why that came with it. But that scene, it was a blend of spiritual and technological combined together with nature. If you're not a spiritual person and you believe more in nature, like that aspect of it all together, I just felt refreshing and something that was different than we've ever seen in other movies. When we do see Future, it's very hard, it's very rigid, it's very smooth in that aspect, but there is really no green, no earth, no texture, but we got that here. And just the vibe of even the inner workings of the city, as when you had T'Challa and Nikita walking through the markets, and you're seeing just that whole feel. It was just like I said, it was sad in the aspect of like, I wish I can experience this. I wish that it felt for me that that's how white people walk through the world. Is that feeling of, we're here, we're home. This is like, there is no, I need to fit in, or I need to feel like, or I need to try to make this my home. It is. Yeah. And that was something that was sad about it, but it was also hopeful that maybe we can get there.
Yeah, it was amazing to go ahead and see the market, see them walk through it, as you just talked about. And I totally will harp on that standpoint where you're just talking about the fact that you saw greenery, because I just got done, earlier this winter watching the latest Blade Runner film. And I love sci-fi and I love the dystopian futures and stuff like that. But this was a future where it's like there was nothing dystopian about it. It was just like, it's here and now. How did you feel about it, Alanna?
Yeah, I was going to bounce off of actually what all of you have said, the utopia aspect. That was Spencer's word. I think it's a perfect word, not dystopia, utopia. And then I had a lot of complicated feelings as well, taking it in as a white person. What if the white hands of pillaging and destruction had never touched Africa? What if we had never touched Africa? What would it have been like? Like this dream. It was very powerful, really powerful. And then the other thing I was thinking of is what you see in Wakanda is, Africa is the cradle of civilization, the development of man, the evolution of the human race literally is an African in origin. And you see the way that Wakanda values tradition, history, and culture, and they have improved and been technological only where necessary, and everything that served as it was is retained. Like the method of choosing the monarch worked for centuries. Why fuck with it? Like, why disturb it? And you don't see that in sort of the Western concept of futurism or development. It's erase it all. It's replace all. Yeah. And there's this beautiful integrated sense of culture in the Wakanda that we're shown on screen with these ancestral elements combined with futurism. So Afrofuturism, perfect concept. So perfect word.
Perfect segue into the fact when we're talking about the ancestral Afrofuturism that exists with keeping on to the past and moving forward traditions. T'Challa is basically back here, and he's here to go ahead and be crowned king. So we get a chance to learn the fact that there are, in the very opening scene of the movie, even before we get to the 1992, there is the fact that there's a meteorite that comes from space. It drops down. We have vibranium. It is a precious metal that is one of the most rarest things what's inside the universe, not just Earth, but the universe in its own right. So as a result, the first Black Panther we figure out, which we donned and talked about in our Wokekanda Report episode 1, is the Black Panther is a mantle. He is not a person. He is a mantle for his people to go ahead and follow behind. And you got the first Black Panther, that then trusted in Basque, which Basque, if you've done any type of research in history and stuff like that, is a god that exists what's inside Egyptians. So,
yeah, right. Yes. I caught that too.
Yeah. Super cool to go ahead and do that. So we move forward and we find out that it's like, all right, T'Challa's here to go ahead and be crowned king. He's going to be the next person, the mantle of the Black Panther, because his father has died at the end of Captain America Civil War. And then, boom, we find out tribes. We go ahead and get Daniel Kaluma from Get Out. He happens to be a part of a tribe that is a strong, like, warrior race type tribe that's there. We get the River tribe. We see their leader with the lip disc, showing like that level of like Afrocentrism that exists. And then all the other tribes are there. T'Challa thinks, I'm about to go ahead and become the king. But no.
Run unopposed.
But there was no unopposed run going on here. He had the carpet swept right from under him, just like that sister that was mayor for a day or two in San Francisco. If you're in the Bay here, you know what I'm talking about.
London breed.
London breed. They set her up for the okie doke, and the Jabari tribe tried to go ahead and set up T'Challa for the okie doke. So the Bari tribe comes through. We find out in the opening credit scenes, they're up in the mountains. They are basically ultimate traditionalists. They are the full-on conservatives of how Wakanda is supposed to be run.
And Luddites a little bit too, rejecting of the technology.
So they come down, played by Winston Duke. This is his first feature film. Brother's about 6'5". He looks like he should go ahead and be starting for the Dallas Cowboys, and then maybe America really could be great again, since the Cowboys are America's team. And he's out there, and he's challenging. And he's letting T'Challa know, I'm here. I want to go ahead and challenge for the throne. I have a royal bloodline. This is probably the first time that their people have stepped down here, and they get into the fight right there at Warrior Falls, and it is brilliant. And you have the Dora Milaje, and you have the Jabari tribe constantly closing in inch by inch with their spears as the ground that they're battling on gets tighter and tighter. What did you think about that, Spencer?
Okay, so a few things to unpack in that scene. One, when we see all these different tribes, the other thing that is accentuated immediately is just the vibrancy of the colors from the clothes that they're wearing, and how each one is basically taking kind of different parts of different African traditions and people and cultures. So you saw the East African there, certainly West Africa, particularly with some of the accents that we hear that become more prominent, and definitely as you mentioned too, like the lip rings and definitely the neck rings as well.
Okoye,
yeah,
constantly rocking the neck ring.
Exactly. So you see all these elements there, and you also get a chance now too during the scene, right before they fight, you get to hear T'Challa's little sister start kind of make jokes, and you see her witty side. And just that she is, in some cases, you can tell that she's younger when she's there for the tradition, but part of her, she's like, I'm kind of bored of this. I don't want to be here. Let's wrap it up. We already know what's going to happen.
Let me get out this course.
That's Shuri. Shuri, which has been, if you follow the comic books at all, she is on the same level of intellect, actually a little bit higher in certain regards, since the fact that she knows how to deal with vibranium than Tony Stark. So she is an absolute genius. The battle ensues. T'Challa is damn near getting his ass whooped out here. He gets stabbed like just a couple of spots away from his heart, but is able to go ahead and recover. Ends up catching a UFC type of like arm drag to the ground, gets M'Baku inside of a triangle choke, asking him to go ahead and yield, and finally M'Baku goes ahead and hits it with a tap. Big John McCarthy calls it, and it's over. And, T'Challa is the victor, round 3 at 5 minutes and 15 seconds into the third round, and he is the king of Wakanda. So we get that moment, and then we have the ceremony that actually happens, because prior to that, basically, the Black Panther has a heart-shaped herb that is embedded with vibranium that gives him his superpowers and his speed and agility that we saw on prominence and display with inside of Captain America Civil War. So then he has to lose those powers to go ahead and fight M'Baku for it to go ahead and be a fair fight. Then now, after winning, they go through the ceremony. He is buried completely in red dust, looking as deep in red as Georgia Clay. He has been given his powers back in the form of his heart-shaped herb in liquid, and then he goes off into the nether realm, into a place to go ahead and see the ancestors. What did y'all think about that scene where he saw his ancestors?
I loved everything about the setting for the place and how they just spent just a brief amount of time, but they made sure to pay attention to the details of how they separated and moved into ceremonies. And one of the things I thought was really interesting about it too is as the T'Challa is going into the spiritual realm, and he's getting covered over with like, as you said, like almost Georgia Clay. That's also taken from the same idea. I actually seen that in DC in Vertigo with John Constantine when he would go visit Hell. That was the same way. He had, in order to go visit, he had to get buried in a grave and get covered over in a grave. And it was like the same process as like he's not actually dead when he gets. Yes, he's getting buried alive, but they're breathing at such a small rate and just in like basically in a deep trance and deep meditative state that they're able to, transcend and go into the spiritual realm. And that immediately clicked with me. I was like, I know I've seen that before. And like that whole concept and idea before. So seeing that actually on the screen and stuff, I'm like, wow, it seemed they definitely did the homework for that.
What were your thoughts, Alanna?
I loved the spirituality of it. I love the display of communing with ancestors as an act of worship, and an act of bringing the tribes together, and it kind of going a little bit back to the fight, and then into this scene as well. The segue into this scene, like you got to see the full sort of 360 view of how the monarch should ascend, like who like you could see some of the sort of the democratic process of each tribe is allowed to object and put up a warrior, and then. Like, I love how smart the film was. Like, they didn't have Forrest Whitaker, like, explain what was going to happen. They just showed it to us. And then having
rather than tell.
Having each tribe's guard close the size of the field as they're competing. Like, you could see this is part of ancient rules. It's always been done this way. And how is it going to be fair? Both of the guards will shrink the field. It's not just the challenger. It's not just the king on the throne. And then, going back into the scene we were just touching on, sort of the continuation, like you just put your body at risk. Now you're going to put your soul at risk to really be tested fully before you're going to go ahead and keep the crown of Wakanda and the identity of the Black Panther. And I loved when he got to see his father, because one of the things that killed me the most in Civil War was the loss of T'Chaka, and watching T'Challa grieve for him, pick him up, hold him, and seeing that you would see your lost parent in the spiritual plane. It was just gorgeous. I was already crying. It was amazing. It was beautiful.
And I just want to say, I thought that was important as well. Is like you said, the 360, the full compass of it. That it's not just about physical strength; it's also about the mental strength as well as the emotional balance of dealing with seeing your dead parent, and being able to come back. Some people might take that negative, like I still want to be with you. And so when you get back, not having that emotional strength to persevere and realize, you do miss your father or you do miss your parent, but you have a country you have to take care of. You have to foster. You have these people that are relying on you that is bigger than you, and that it's not just your personal connection. That, it is about your spiritual connection to the entire country as a whole. I thought, as well as it was visually shot so beautifully.
One other point off of that, it does remind me of some other sort of thematic material you see when someone is meditating, when they're having a test. A lot of the times it's like you will see what you need to see in order to move on. And what did he need to see? He needed to see his father. He needed to express to his father that it's not that I can't be king, it's that I can't be king without you still with me. And Closure. It was just like, what do you see when you're released into a space like that? Like he's taken the drug, he's packed into the earth, and like he sees what he needs to see, and that is also very powerful. I liked that a lot.
So we get the heart-shaped drug. He's on his way, and then boom, now we get into the beginning, kind of the second act of the film, and this is where we get Michael B. Jordan and we get Killmonger, and he is standing inside of the British Museum of Art, which, as we know, if you're any person of color from around the world, some of your lineage and your history exists inside the British Museum of Art. If you are from South America, from the United States of America, from the continent of Africa, and you happen to have the money and resources to be able to go ahead and travel up to England and go ahead and see your culture firsthand, you can go ahead and do that.
Can we also note for the fact that the scene went straight from Wakanda, that has never been colonized or conquered, directly to Britain.
The colonizer of colonizers.
The colonizer.
The sun will never set on the British Empire, which was a great line that was actually used later on by Killmonger to basically say that the sun will never set on the Wakandan Empire. We'll get into that. But so scene happens. He's there. He's observing art, out here living his best life, as folks like to say. And the person that is showing him all these things, she's having a little bit of a cough, a little control, and we find out that he has poisoned her. He has a whole setup going on, working with Ulysses Claw, who Ulysses Claw is basically the Osama bin Laden to Wakandans. He has caused more havoc and wreck than any other person in Wakanda because, one, he knows about their history, knows where they exist, has murdered people within inside of a plot where he stole vibranium. We get a chance to see some of the vibranium that he had stolen.
4 tons.
Yeah, 4 tons. We see some of it stolen when we look at Age of Ultron inside of that movie, branded for it. And we see Killmonger out here working with him. And the scene ends, all these things go on, and then it goes ahead and moves us to South Korea. So we get this type of James Bond type of feel that we have going on with the Dora Milaje, with Okoye, with Nikita basically showing her worth. She happens to know what's going on. Claw comes in. We have the goons. We have the poker chips flying. We have a full battle going on. Then it moves on into the race, which we get this really cute scene with basically Shuri showing her intellectual might by the fact that she's created a system for her to control cars from her own lab. What did y'all think about this scene? I thought this was dope.
Brilliant.
Another unexpected thing. It was just like, it just was right on top of each other. And there's 3 things that happened in your description that stood out to me. The first thing was with Michael B. Jordan's opening scene when he's talking to the curator or the other woman that's showing him around. He immediately acknowledges and takes a point out to make when it comes to stealing artifacts, as you brought up earlier. Mm-hmm. He points it out directly to her. And that was another thing that got a round of applause when we were watching. Same. Immediately. It just, everyone, him calling it out immediately and just kind of showing the hypocrisy in terms of, saying like, hey, you can't take this from the museum. He's like, well, where did you guys take this from? And immediately acknowledging that. So that social commentary there, again, just walking that tightrope, but still keep saying enough in a short scene. So that was that. Next, when we go into the actual fight scene, Okoye just showed out, and that was the first time that you really got to see like her as a warrior, as a general, as the best fighter, just literally just take everyone down.
And she wasn't fighting zombies in this movie.
No.
There were some real goons, and she was taking them down.
No problem.
So how did you feel about that, Alanna, with just seeing the empowerment of Okoye just basically going ham?
Oh my God, I loved it because we're going on this hyper dangerous mission, trying to encounter the number one enemy of the state of Wakanda, Claw. And who are we bringing? We're bringing 2 women, and we're accepting it as fact. Who should I have with me on this mission where I need my life to be protected? These two women. And then they show immediately what, like, you're right into it. Why are they there? And her using Okoye using a spear is just so fucking perfect. Like, she is one with that spear. It is an extension of her arm. She is everywhere with that spear. Like, no one can touch her. It's just outstanding. And she's gorgeous the whole time. But it's she's on.
And she had to go ahead and shed that wig because she walked in. She was like, I don't want this wig on my head. And she got to shedding that wig, and she got to fighting, and it was awesome. So they eventually go ahead and they capture Claw. He happens to go ahead and be inside a lockup, and then boom, we get Michael B. Jordan back again. C4 against the wall. Explosion happens. He ends up getting freed. But before that happens, to me, what is going on inside of the movie is secretly the real kind of villain, which happens to be the United States of America, led by, if you have read any of the comics, especially from Christopher Priest, the African-American that took over for the run inside the 1990s after Stan Lee was done with the comic series for the Black Panther. Christopher Priest had a white protagonist at times known as Everett K. Ross, who happens to go ahead and basically be the head kind of State Department CIA liaison, and he knows everything Wokandan. And he's there, and he's just like, oh, I've got my men here. T'Challa kind of stay out of my way. And T'Challa's just like, look, bruh, I'm the king now. Like, you may have thought I'm my father. I'm not my father. I'm going to do what I want to do.
You've been warned.
You've been warned. He told him that explicitly. You've been warned. So scene moves fast. Unfortunately, Everett K. Ross ends up getting clipped in the spine. It's looking all bad for him. They're able to go ahead and get away with Claw is the outfit that takes him, led by Killmonger. And then we have two diverging scenes where we've got them trying to save Everett K. Ross by taking him to Wakanda, which at the start I'm just like, why are you
Everyone was shocked.
I was like, why are you taking this white man here? Don't do that.
There was audible moaning in the pause when they saw that. Like, what is going on?
And with the perfect intuition, a sprinkle of Oprah, a slab a little bit of Ava DuVernay, and just like a pinch, you know what I'm saying, of bell hooks. It was basically said, Okoye came out and said, do not bring this man back to Wakanda. But T'Challa had to go ahead and assert his patriarchy
because his ex wanted it. I'm just saying.
Yeah, because his ex wanted him, and he had to assert his patriarchy. He said, look, I'm the king. This is what we doing. This is what we rolling with.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is DeRa. I'm not the king, but this is what we're rolling with. That concludes the end of part 1 of the Wokekanda Report Black Panther review. We will have part 2 that will be released next Friday, which would be Friday the 23rd. And then definitely check back again in March. On March 2nd, we're going to have another Let's Talk About It segment with Collaborate, where he discusses and breaks down his music as well as his latest project, Real Person. So again, thank you for listening to another Stay Woke podcast, and definitely come back and listen to part 2 where we get more in depth in the second half of Black Panther. And we break down a little bit more and go into more depth about the social commentary that was very evident and prominent on this movie.